All right, so this is pretty interesting here. We got a story here. It says Sanders says he would support Biden re-election bid. Now, this is especially coming off of the heels of AOC's comment on CNN, which I also covered the day before yesterday, I believe it was. She went on CNN with Dana Bash and was asked if she would support Biden's run in 2024, and she said, "I don't know. We'll see when we get to it," which is interesting because obviously, endorsing your party's candidate as the general election candidate is a pretty big deal. But what you can see here is, and I guess there's no video of this, but it says Senator Bernie Sanders said on Monday that he would support a re-election bid by President Biden if he decides to run for another term. Comments that come one day after Progressive Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez declined to say whether she would endorse a Biden campaign in 2024. Um, Asked if he would support the president in 2024, the Vermont senator told CNN it is a little too early, before adding, "I think Biden will probably run again, and if he runs again, I will support him." So that's kind of the qualifier for the statement of him not saying he'll run again. There's been increased speculation as to who the next progressive candidate for president is actually going to be. Some reports are saying that the Sanders team was trying to actually float Ro Khanna as the idea for it. So it'll be pretty interesting to see who it ends up being, Bernie, Roe, who it ends up actually being. But he's definitely saying here, like, if Biden runs, then he won't run for sure. But if Biden doesn't end up running, which there's always a chance, you never know what could happen. I think that Joe Biden is very clear on his intent to run, but you never know what life is going to throw at you that could change it. Maybe he gets like, random like glioblastoma diagnosis like John McCain did or something like that. You never know what can happen at that old of an age. And so it'll be interesting, if Joe Biden decides not to run, Bernie Sanders, I would definitely say should run again for sure. Because he could be a potential guy, and he built bridges with Joe Biden and stuff. They were even buddies before. But their relationship has really been very interesting throughout this administration. They started out pretty strong together. Bernie bowed out of the primary pretty quickly to endorse Joe Biden, so that was well forged. And even before then, Bernie really had a soft spot for Joe Biden because Joe was very nice to him back when nobody knew who Bernie was in the Senate. And so because of that, he had like some really close ties, and that even ended up like personal ties in terms of like, oh, I like the guy. Whereas like with Hillary, it wasn't the same. It was completely different. And I thought he was too nice to Hillary Clinton. I thought he was way too kind to Hillary. I thought he should have gone way harder, like Obama did. So imagine like with how weak he was against Joe Biden, right? But this is an article that says why Biden is keeping Bernie close. President and Senate's most recognizable progressive make sure to work constructively together even under stressful policy battles. This is an article from a long, long time ago. It's from almost like a year and a half ago, like a year and a quarter. But it basically talks about how like Bernie and Biden's teams were very close to each other, and one of the big things that Joe Biden did was he really helped the workers' labor movement in this country by publicly coming out and putting pressure on corporations. And he said that Christian Smalls got him in trouble and all that stuff. So he had brought out public messages against these corporations, but also he had appointed a progressive to the national NLRB, I think it's the National Labor Relations Board, I think is what it is. And so that person was able to mediate between Amazon and the union workers, and was able to get a agreement and also prevent Amazon from stopping the unionization. We see Starbucks is unionizing and all this stuff. So it really, those things could not have been successful without Joe Biden. Trump's NLRB was like probably the most anti-worker in I think all of like U.S. history, if I'm not mistaken. But don't quote me on that. It's one of the worst. But I think I had read somewhere that it was like straight up the worst of all. So Bernie and Biden have a very fascinating relationship. They obviously don't agree on stuff. Nowhere close. They're nowhere even close in terms of agreement on stuff. But they kind of keep it together personally to try to maximize their possibilities with each other, so they avoid beef. So they're not going to beef. So I really don't think he's going to run. He could always change his mind. I mean, Elizabeth Warren said she wasn't going to run in 2020, and look what she did. She ran, right? So people lie, or people just change their mind. You never know which one. I don't think it's likely if Biden runs. If Biden runs, that Bernie runs, because I think it would just be political suicide entirely, would destroy his career entirely. It's very taboo to, it's almost like it's very rare for a incumbent president of either party to have primary challengers, because they're already the incumbent. So you're supposed to run with them and strengthen that instead of trying to fight each other again. So there's just no way he would do it. It would be horrible PR. He wouldn't, he might. I don't know if he would win, honestly. I mean, Biden's numbers are terrible, but Democrats are probably the ones who are still going to vote for Joe Biden. So, probably wouldn't end well. But I really highly doubt that he's going to end up running. But a different answer than AOC gave. So, pretty interesting. But that's likely because AOC and Biden don't have the same relationship that Bernie and Biden do. Bernie and Biden are work buddies. And so, they, even though they disagree, they work together to try to push for Bernie trying to push for as much progressive legislation and Biden trying to get what he can out of the situation as much as possible. So I believe Bernie when he says this, but it'll be interesting to see if Joe doesn't run. Does he end up running or not? That's what's interesting.